Yo, this is the Scar City Studios YouTube channel. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. And our sponsors at Alpha Claims and Hire Birmingham, the leading and best accident management company. Get a replacement car anywhere in 1 hour. I really appreciate you joining me today, and this story is another case from the Metropolitan Police. This has got absolutely no coverage and he's been convicted as well. Detective Constable Paul Allgood is attached to the Met Economic Crime Unit, and he has pled guilty and been convicted of 3 counts of making, possessing indecent images of children, and 3 counts of outraging public decency when he appeared at Wood Green Crown Court on the 8th of April. The detective appeared at the same court on the 23rd of May, and he was sentenced to 22 months in prison, suspended for 24 months for the crimes. The court heard that on the 4th of June 2019, officers from the Online Child Abuse and Exploitation Unit executed a search warrant at the detective's home in Enfield. Officers arrested him at the address on suspicion of being in possession of indecent images of children. 20 electronic devices were seized from the property, and the detective was released on a conditional bail while the devices were analysed. 5 of them contained indecent images of children, and he was charged in the post on the 23rd of November 2020 and suspended from all duties until his court appearance. So this case is frankly a joke. The fact that they haven't released his identity and he's been convicted of a crime, and also the fact that he hasn't gone to prison when he's a detective, he is in a position of power in the police force. And with all the cases we've covered this week alone about crooked police, to have this just come out and just be so low key is actually offensive. And regular viewers of the channel will know that we'll definitely keep you updated on any stories like this that the mainstream media try to keep quiet. In this next story, it's very similar because it's about somebody that was in a position of trust and abused it over a 35-year period. What really gets me with this story is the fact that how nobody could have known in that time what was going on, and I fail to believe that or find that plausible. In the Metropolitan Police statement, they actually don't mention the hospital that he worked for, but this was actually revealed quite early on that he worked for Great Ormond Street Hospital. Great Ormond Street has done a lot of great work for children, and it is a children's hospital, and it has worked to focus on children with severe medical conditions and help them, some of them terminal illnesses, and help them and their families through this time. And of course, with the fact that it is a children's hospital, you'd like to think that there was a lot of safeguarding going on to ensure that no children were being taken advantage of. Phil Farrell, who is 55 years old, was a porter at the hospital, and he has been convicted of taking out over 500 attacks on boys over a 35-year period. He's been sentenced to life in prison for the offences, and the only reason these started to emerge was that in 2019, somebody that was abused in the 1980s came to speak out. So this wasn't because somebody at the hospital actually revealed this, or somebody recently did it. It's because somebody that is now an adult actually came forward and spoke out. These offences are meant to have taken place against 8 boys that were aged under 13 years old from 1985 to 2020. So he was still abusing children as recently as a couple of months ago. Farrell lured 2 of the children into parts of the hospital that he only had access to before molesting them in their linen room. The predator took the boys there and pretended to offer them work experience. They were told in court in North London, Wood Green. His photograph can now be revealed after the judge lifted restrictions to stop the media from reporting on it. Police suspect that Farrell from Camden was responsible for other attacks on other boys, but 25 offences were laid on record with no conviction. He was investigated for the abuse of over 30 boys, but no further charges were brought against him for a lot of them cases. They said that none of the victims were patients at the hospital where he worked in 95 in a variety of jobs. He targeted most of the victims after offering to babysit them for for their parents. The prosecutor, Paul Douglas, said there was 69 counts the defendant pled guilty to, and many of those were multi-indecent counts, and they were looking at several hundred indecent acts of sexual assault over 35 years against boys aged 5 to 16. Offences against 2 victims occurred inside Great Ormond Street Hospital, inside the linen room, where the defendant was based for a large period of his employment. But due to the fact that they didn't find out about any of them until 2019, to even imagine that nothing happened in 1980 would be a bit ridiculous, to be honest. There is of course going to be cases of people that have never come forward that he will have abused. The prosecution said the abuse occurred in the victims' homes in London and also Essex, in a community centre, a caravan in Kent, and also at his mother's address. Farrell did not appear in court on his day of the hearing, and he faced trial later on after the charges were brought last year. He was only arrested in January 2020 after victims had came forward from abuse from 20 years ago. A search of his address in his home found indecent images and pornography of children and also DVDs. An analysis of his mobile phone also found indecent images of children and pornographic material of children. He admitted 5 further counts of possessing indecent pornography and also extreme pornography relating to children at a previous hearing. The Crown Prosecution Service, they said that he carried out a campaign of sexual abuse against young boys over a 35-year period. He was a prolific attacker, and he used his position inside the hospital to gain trust of people and also to use it as a cover. So I thought this was a really important story to highlight while I was talking about that other story as well to do with the police officer, and how important it is to make sure that people are safeguarded and also any concerns are thoroughly investigated by management and authorities. There's been a lot of different cases in Great Ormond Street Hospital involving, for example, Baby P, where they said there was a lot of failures to do with children. And being as it is a hospital that is focused on children, it's very important to ensure that this doesn't happen again in the future. And please don't forget, your support really does help as well. Share this story and make sure that everybody does see it. So really appreciate you joining me for this episode. Please don't forget to like, comment, share and subscribe. I'll be back again very shortly with some more news. Peace.
The most phenomenal reputation is the foremost children's hospital, so one treads very carefully about even beginning to think that things might not be correct. But in the end, you have to speak out for the children. You can't say, I mustn't damage your reputation.